This is an encore presentation of Disclosure, brought to you by the Voice of Prophecy.
Welcome to everybody. You are listening to Disclosure. I am Sean Boonstra, and this program is brought to you by the good people at the Voice of Prophecy. I suspect that most of you by now are probably getting sick and tired about hearing of COVID-19, the current pandemic that's keeping much of the world in a state of stay-at-home lockdown. Since you last tuned in, the Voice of Prophecy has also had to lock down, and now we've moved to what they're calling basic minimal operations. So all we're allowed to do right now is keep a few essential functions running, and we're not even using our studio. I am, for better or for worse, sitting in my home study. So if this does not sound like a professionally produced radio program, do not blame Harim or Ruben. It's my fault. I set this up in my studio, and everybody's in separate locations today. Ruben Gomez, the producer, is at home. Harim is at his home, and we are struggling to make this sound as good as possible. So this might actually end up being a podcast that goes out over the radio. We've got 40 employees who are trying to figure out how to keep this global ministry running when the governor of Colorado has ordered us, like has happened in many of your states. We've been ordered to go home. And I got to tell you, it's a huge challenge because the situation and the requirements seem to shift, well, on a daily basis. So one day I get an order from Larimer County. That's where I live here in Colorado. And we scramble to reorganize the entire ministry and meet all of the requirements of this public health order. And it took a long time. I mean, we wanted to be compliant. We care about public health. We want to do our part to make sure that the vulnerable in our community don't contract the disease because of our carelessness. So we worked hard and we pulled off a literal miracle. It took a day and a half and we made the ministry entirely compliant. It wasn't easy. We were pulling all-nighters. And then as soon as we were compliant, by 5 o'clock the next day, our governor announced that he was issuing a new public health order, and that would supersede the county's health order, and we had to scramble again. Now, here was the problem. Maybe I should say challenge, because challenge is a better word maybe than problem, but let me just burst my blisters for a minute. Let me tell you what the big challenge was with the governor's order. He gets on TV at 5 o'clock, roughly 5 p.m., and he says, look, I'm issuing a brand new health order. Everybody has to go home. I will post the details on my website at midnight tonight, and you must be compliant by 6 a.m. Now, how many businesses are running between midnight and 6 a.m.? I didn't find it, just to get this off my chest, I did not find that to be a reasonable timeline. And here's the bigger problem. He issues one of those sudden, urgent bulletins that show up on your cell phone in the middle of the night. The website is now live. You can read the governor's order. Here's just my little recommendation, and this will be the end of my frustration, but here's my recommendation. If you're going to tell 5 million people to go to a website, maybe make sure it can handle the traffic, because I really do want to be compliant. The website crashed as soon as he sent word out that the order was up. It crashed. I finally got into the website at 5:45 the next morning, when I had 15 minutes to be compliant or face up to a year in jail. 15 minutes is not enough time to carry out, I'm just going to put this out there, and maybe the governor could hear this. That is not enough time to carry out a complete restructure of an organization. You can't do it in 15 minutes. And so we scrambled. We had an emergency meeting. We made all the needed changes. Although I will be honest, I guess I could get a year in jail for this. It took us a little longer than 6 a.m. to make everything compliant. It was just the reality of the situation. So we set up all of our employees remotely, which is why you're getting a remote edition of this show today. And then we went home that morning. So I'm broadcasting from my study. This is not exactly a state-of-the-art recording facility, but here we are. We are doing our part to spread the stop of this coronavirus. And as you can imagine, this has created for me, I've expressed it, a lot of concern and anxiety. Just like it has for you. Some of you listening, you've been laid off. You have no idea when you're going back to work. Some of you, you run a small business. You have no idea how you're going to survive this shutdown, and you don't know if you're going to be able to keep your employees. You don't know if and when assistance funding is going to come through. Some of you are living in fear that someone you know, maybe somebody who's vulnerable, has a weakened immune system. Maybe they might become one of those horrible statistics, the people who can't survive this thing if they get it. And so there's a lot of frustration out there. There's a lot of concern, and there's a lot of anxiety. And so here's what we're going to do today on the show. I mean, if the equipment works the way it should, and that's another source of anxiety for me right now, but if the equipment works the way that it should, we're putting in a call. Well, she's already online. You can see her if you're looking at Facebook Live. We've got in a call to Jennifer Jill Schwerzer from Abide Counseling, our in-house counselor who maybe can talk me down a little bit from my anxiety. So if you find yourself, no, I can't afford you is right. But hey, no, everybody else can afford you, just not me, because they pay me in my paycheck jingles when I get my envelope. You can shake it and it makes noise, and you can spend it all at the bubblegum machine. So listen, if you've been laying awake at night, folks, wondering how you're going to pay your bills, how are you going to keep your home? How are you going to put food on the table? Where are you going to get toilet paper? That kind of stuff. You're going to want to listen to this. And so this is not going to be like the other COVID shows. Stay tuned on this one. We're not going to focus on how scary this is. We're going to look at maybe some answers about navigating the next few weeks that are ahead of all of us. So, Jennifer, welcome back to the show. No stranger to the show, but this is different, right? I actually see your study, your little
you do.
Jennifer
my little cave. My Jen cave. Yeah, exactly.
The Jen cave.
The Jen cave.
Hey,
my
listen,
guitar, my hat.
You're on the other side of the country from me, though, right? You're in Florida. So
Orlando, Florida.
What's it going on? What have you been watching happen over there?
Well, it's really one of the harder hit states. It's thought to be similar to Italy because of the climate, because of the international travel, and the aging population of same as Italy. So there are concerns that we're going to get hit hard. If you look at a map of the country, of course, New York and the Northeast corridor is the hardest hit, and then going down the coast, there's a lot of action. Then Florida lights up. So we're not at the cusp of it, but we're up there in terms of the amount of cases. Yeah.
We hold we're in number 5 right now. We've got 2,700 active cases today, and it's here in town. I know it's here. It started with one healthcare worker, and then it invaded a nursing home here. And once it hits the nursing home, it's bad news.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So listen, what are you seeing? I mean, you deal with counseling. Are you seeing a bit of an uptick in the assistance people are seeking?
Yeah, that's a good question. But actually, I was doing basically one day of counseling a week because I'm in a doctoral program, which is extremely demanding.
Oh, lucky you. Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing has changed. I'm just home doing studies just like I was before. But I was doing counseling one day a week, and I'm not sure exactly all the factors. I had not been taking new clients because I was trying to cut down my caseload. It might be that it caught up, but all of a sudden it went through the floor. And my thinking is that people just, and my thinking is that people just knew that they were going to be poor. They didn't know where the next check was going to come from. I mean, there's a lot of businesses failing, a lot of people getting laid off.
Yeah.
And so basically we're dealing with third world conditions, and counseling is basically first world problems. So they still have the problems. They just don't have the time or the bandwidth or the money right now to deal with it. And so I cut my fees in half until April 15th, and I'll reassess at that point so that I can see the people that I'm still seeing. Yeah, because I feel like now, I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from either. I'm self-employed. I have a small business. I run a nonprofit corporation. It's all like investments. Everything's up in the air, and it doesn't look real great. But the thing is
that's kind of the same thing that happens to us. We're a nonprofit, and one of the first things to go in the market tanks is charitable contributions.
That's right. That's right. But to me, there's one of two responses we can have to that, Sean. We can hang on and cling and be anxious, or we can say everybody's in trouble and we can start to pour out. So that's what I'm trying to do, is meet the crisis, not worrying about me, but worrying about people that are worse off than me. And that has helped me manage the anxiety of it, actually, because it's not going to be easy on me, but it's not going to be easy on everyone, And that's the thing is that at least, Sean, and you'll relate to this as an anxious person, that at least you don't have to think, man, I'm a loser. I'm the only one at home with no work. Everybody's dealing with the same situation.
I wish I was at home without work. That would actually be great. These have been 20-hour days for us right now because we have to reorganize everything for 40 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it in context. You'll understand then, financial struggle. Everybody's
Sure.
struggling. Pretty much everybody's wondering what's going to happen to us financially. You're not alone in that. If you were the only one and everybody else was prospering, it would feel a lot worse than if everybody else
true.
is struggling. So there is that one factor that we're in this together.
Well, here's the good thing up front. I didn't feel all that prosperous going into this. And so I actually said to my kids the other day, my daughter flew home from college. We got her out at the last minute before they closed everything down. And she's home and she was saying, man, this stinks. I can't do this. I've lost all my freedom. I said, here's the good news. There's 340 million of us that have lost all of our freedoms.
Exactly,
and we're all in this together.
That's right.
I said, here's the good news. You're also a college student, so you don't have anything to lose.
That's right.
I'm laughing about that, but I said, there was something when I didn't have a penny to my name. I was worth $100 soaking wet.
That's right.
These kinds of crises didn't bother me because I didn't have anything anyway.
Well, it was actually better because all of a sudden you were joined by the rest of the population instead of being on the low end of the stick of poverty. You're like, hey, there's all these people that can relate to me all of a sudden.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we have those two choices. We can pour out and we can say, what can I do to make it better on someone who is worse off than I am?
Sure.
Or we can get all scared and retract and try to protect what we have. And I think that the former response is just really powerful. And I've seen a lot of examples of that. The other day, we have Advent Health here in Orlando, and a bunch of people, of course, they can't go into the hospital, but of course, everybody at this stage wants to praise and extol the healthcare workers. They have become the overnight celebrities in our culture. And forget all the entertainers. Who cares about them right now? It's the health workers that we want to put on a pedestal. And so they knew they couldn't go in the hospital and thank them, but these drove of people, I don't know where they came from, flooded the parking lot and started flashing their lights and honking their horns to say thank you to the medical staff at Advent Health. Yeah, I thought that was a beautiful display of, everybody is trying to cheer each other on, or at least at our best, we're trying to cheer each other on and help us get through this together. So that was really a beautiful example.
We've been noticing that here on our end. Ruben and I were talking a little while ago along with Gene. It's like there is an upside to this. We seem to be finding our heart back as an American people, and we're learning who our neighbors are. And this is horrible. Nobody wanted this, but to come out the other end of this, maybe with a reordered sense of priorities, might be the uptick of this thing.
Well,
now
you're talking my
suddenly we know
language.
what's important. Yeah,
you're talking my language because there's a whole field of study called post-traumatic growth, or benefit finding is another expression for it. And it's this. Let me break this down for you. So
we've got 30 seconds. We've got 30 seconds to the break.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you on pause because this is big. I can't believe I got something right up front. I said something that was correct, and that doesn't happen every day. So my anxiety is already dropping. Hey, you're listening to Disclosure. I'm Sean Boonstra. I'm sitting down with Jennifer Jill Schwerzer from Abide Counseling. We're talking about dealing with anxiety in the midst of a crisis. We're going to take a little break. I want you to listen to these details. We have things you can do while you're in social isolation, and I'll be right back after this.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions? Like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Does my life really matter to God? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? The Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers that you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter the most to you. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
And we are back from the break. You're listening to Disclosure. My name is Sean Boonstra. This program is brought to you by the good folks at the Voice of Prophecy. We're sitting down today, or we're actually Skyping, with Jennifer Jill Schwerzer of Abide Counseling. And we're talking about anxiety, which seems apropos in the world that we live in. We've been through lots of crises in our lifetimes. We've been through oil shortages. We've been through recessions. We've been through 9/11. I went through the SARS epidemic in Toronto. I lived at Ground Zero. But this one feels different, and we're all sensing that this one is different because it seems to be affecting everybody, and there are rising levels of anxiety. And I know that, Jennifer, you deal with anxiety, and that's why I wanted you to come in and talk. And unbelievably, I got something right just before we took the break. I said, I think people are finding their better selves, or something to that effect. We're finding our better selves in the midst of this crisis, and I wanted you to unpack that a little bit, because that's actually a part of what you work with.
Well, first of all, people's character comes out under pressure. And so you're going to see both extremes. You're going to see people looting or taking advantage of the vulnerable. You're also going to see people showing up as heroes and serving sacrificially. But another thing is that it's possible to find good things in the midst of the bad things. And we don't want to rush to that. We don't want to fail to empathize with the struggles that people are having.
Sure.
But there is a place for saying what good has come out of this horrific situation. And there's actually a field of study in the social sciences called post-traumatic growth, or benefit finding. And let me tell you how I stumbled upon it. I was noticing, as I'm studying trauma on a doctoral level, I was noticing that the gist of the studies that I was, consuming on a day-to-day basis seemed to be saying that trauma occurred and you can't do anything about it. I'm exaggerating a little to make a point, but that's kind of the message I was getting, because it would talk again and again about the effects of trauma. And then I was looking at the scriptures, and it was saying something completely different. It was saying that people actually grew from difficult experiences. So what I did was I looked into the science, and I said, I wonder if there have been any researchers that have studied benefits that come out of trauma. And it turns out there's this whole field called post-traumatic growth, where they actually show the things that come from a traumatic experience. So some of those benefits are things like, a stronger sense of purpose, deepened spirituality, more meaning in life. This kind of thing can happen to a person who goes through a trauma. And if you think about it, what we're going through right now is a mass trauma. A mass trauma is a situation, either an act of war or a natural disaster or something like this. We might call it a pestilence or an illness that basically outstrips our current resources. So here, as a collective society, we have a certain number of resources that help us get through day to day. All of a sudden, we've got this thing upon us that is greater than our resources. That's a really hard thing to face. It's difficult. There's a lot of bad things happening, but there's also some good things happening, and there's good things that come out of this. And you said it a minute ago. One of them is people seem to be pulling together. It seems to be pulling out of people their best selves, and also they seem to be pulling their resources to try to meet that resource deficit collectively. And there's this spirit that comes over people where they say, we can do this. There's a can-do attitude, not necessarily apart from God, but God promises to strengthen us from within, the Bible says. So God can strengthen us to meet challenges in very meaningful. I was just reading the other day about a charity in San Diego called Feed San Diego. They'd raised $6 million for people that were at risk of nutritional issues because of the current crisis. There's stuff like this. It's a fun thing to do is, go on the internet and look at what's happening on a grassroots level. There's another group called Summit Marches On. Summit, New Jersey has raised up these volunteers that are running to the store for seniors and shut-ins and people that can't get out. So there's these grassroots movements that are taking place that we see in situations like this are really actually something. And so there are things that come out of bad things. And I just think that's the gospel, that God took the tragedy of sin.
Yeah.
And it's not that he made it happen, but he took the raw materials that came out as a result of sin and transformed them into the plan of redemption. So I think that's a biblical principle.
It's amazing what I'm discovering, actually, as I'm forced to be quiet a little bit. I've got things I need to think about, and I tend to obsess, but I've got kids, one in college, one finishing high school. Her graduation's probably canceled. My daughter's trying to figure out if she's got a summer internship this year, and a mortgage to pay and those kinds of things. But then in the quiet hours, I feel this tap on the shoulder sometimes when I pray. It's like, okay, you've got problems. I can handle your problems. What are you doing to be an answer to prayer for somebody else? And suddenly we find ourselves, Jean contacted the neighbors. You guys okay? Can you get the groceries? Would you like us to pick things up? And I like what's coming out of people, to be honest. Let's talk about.
I've seen my counseling group. I have a counseling network of biblically based counselors that serve people all over the world, really. And several of the counselors were just like, what can we do? We need to do something. And so what we did was we set up a support call Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
We've done it the last 2 weeks. We're going to continue it into the future till we don't know when, but we're going to have a support call every single night for people. The thing about it is some people that can't leave their home are totally isolated. They don't live with people.
Sure.
As aggravating as our families can be, at least there's people there. They have no one staring at the walls day after day. So that support call can really mean a lot to those people, and also to people who are in abusive environments or who have real significant tragedy as a result, losing their job or business failing or something as the result of COVID-19. So there's lots of needs that have surfaced, but it seems almost like the group call meets the need more effectively than a one-on-one counseling session would.
No kidding.
Because there's just this there's this need for feeling like you're not alone in this current situation. I think that the support calls have really met. So, and those are free, by the way. Anybody can show up.
Where can somebody? I saw that. I saw that on Twitter. Where can somebody join in that if they want to join in and hear how people are coping and have a support call? Where do they call?
Where do they call? Okay, so what they do is they go to 7:00 Eastern time. Because right now, just go to abide.network. That's all you have to do is put in abide.network, and your search engine will take you to our webpage. And I'll give you the number right now too. 7 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to, and you call 712-770-4010, and then you put in the access code 305-624 hashtag.
Okay.
Again, that's on my website, abide.network.
Okay, I think I from my end it glitched a little bit in control room. Did that glitch? Did we get the phone number? Let's just repeat that number one more time. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday?
Yep.
Okay, and the phone number one more time? 712?
712-770-4010.
Okay.
And the access code is 305-624.
Great.
Sign, hashtag, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure. And I see we're going to make sure that we're going to put the number up on disclosureradio.com so that you can enjoy that with everybody else. I want to talk a little bit. If you're hearing the odd glitch and digital artifacting, that's because we are all hunkered down with you folks. Well, not with you. We're hunkered down like you. You wouldn't want me hunkering down with you because, well, they've closed all the hairdressers and barbers, and my hair grows a quarter inch a day.
Mine too.
Give it another month, and I will be why the rumor of the Sasquatch persists. So you wouldn't want me living with you right now, but we are in this together, and so we're doing this remotely. You'll hear a little digital artifacting. It's not great radio, but hey, we're still in business. We're going to figure out how this works, and we're in this together. I'm sitting down with Jennifer Jill Schwerzer of Abide Counseling, and I want to talk a little bit about. Let's talk about stress management, because my stress response is don't go to bed and don't sleep, manage your life. And so I'm down to about, well, I don't sleep anyway, but I'm down to 2 or 3 hours a night right now. Yeah.
Sean.
So let's talk about anxiety. This is your wheelhouse, right?
All right.
I struggle, you solve.
I know. Well, I wish I could cure you. I'd get the Nobel Prize, I think. But let's aim for some other people. And let's see if any of it trickles off or affects you somehow. So some research was done on mass trauma, and the interventions that were found to help were, and I'm going to list them off here and then unpack them one by one. So number one, a sense of safety. Create a sense of safety. And then number two, learn calming techniques. Learn how to calm. Number three,
I need this one. No, that one I don't even, that was like a foreign language, that one. Learn what, sorry? Calming techniques? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Then cultivate a sense of efficacy, both self-efficacy and group efficacy, and then connect to people. We were talking about that a minute ago, and also distillation of hope, putting hope into people. So
that was distillation of hope, folks, not open a distillery. That is not how you handle your anxiety. Distillation of hope. Yeah, let's unpack that. We've got about 2.5 minutes till the next break, so let's get started because I think this is going to prove important for a lot of people.
Okay, so number one, the sense of safety. Be careful about what news sources you're looking at. I looked at several polls as to what the reliable sources of news were, and these were the ones that were voted by both Republicans and Democrats as the most reliable sources. Public, PBS, Associated Press, and NPR. Also look at the actual corporate, like the CDC, look at their actual web page.
Right.
Look at WHO, World Health Organization, web idea what's going on. And be careful, limit how much you're exposing yourself to, because there's there's fake news on one extreme, it's completely fallacious. And then there's, reliable news on the other extreme. And then there's a whole bunch of gradations in between, stuff that's just exaggerated or that's politicized. Lean heavily toward the stuff that's subjective and not
so it's a little bit like when you feel a little bit sick. Here's one that I've been guilty of. I feel a little bit sick at 2 a.m, so I get online and I try and diagnose myself. And doctors will tell you, I recently went to the hospital because I fell off the ladder and tore a ligament in my jaw, and I figured that it was my TMJ acting up. So I was doing stretches and stuff, and I made it worse. And I went in and they said, let me guess, Dr. Google? I said, yeah, and they rolled their eyes. And so I think the internet's not always your best friend. Wonderful source of information. I wish it had been there when I was a kid and had to write a report. But on the other hand, I think you're right. Making sure that where you're getting information is not a conspiracy theory. It's not, the off-the-wall tinfoil hat stuff. And everybody knows I love tinfoil hat stuff. I like putting on my tinfoil hat for fun. I do know how to take it back off, but I think right now the tinfoil hat's not helping anybody.
No. And even anybody can set up a website. Anybody can set up a Facebook page and look legitimate.
Yeah, and what does it really matter? Let's say that this really was an evil plot by some evil mastermind. What difference does that make today? I mean, you're right. I think getting a good source of information makes good sense, and I always try to balance that with the Bible. We've got like 20 seconds to the next break, and so we're going to take that break, and you go do what you need to do. I'll go do what I need to do, and we'll be back in a few seconds to keep up this discussion with Jennifer Jill Schwerzer about how to deal with anxiety in a time of crisis. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Disclosure is just one of the programs brought to you by the Voice of Prophecy, like the audio adventure program Discovery Mountain. Discovery Mountain is a weekly Bible-based program for kids of all ages and backgrounds. Your family will enjoy faith-building stories with Jake Donovan, Mr. Simon, and others in this small mountain town. Each summer, campers visit Discovery Mountain, where they sing songs, learn about God, and reenact a Bible story with the help of drama teachers Miss Wendy and Miss Tamara. With 24 full episodes every year and programming every week, your family will have something uplifting to listen to every week. Listen to episodes on demand and watch video features from Director Doug at discoverymountain.com or on your favorite podcast platform. That's discoverymountain.com.
All right, we are back from the break. You are listening to Disclosure. My name is Sean Boonstra. This program brought to you by the good people at the Voice of Prophecy. Today, we are living in the midst of this COVID-19 epidemic. Pandemic is actually the word that they're using now because it's become so widespread and so far beyond what we find ourselves capable of dealing with at a realistic pace. And we're going to talk about what this might be doing in your home today. And I've got Jennifer Jill Schwerzer from Abide Counseling with me. We're doing this over Skype because we're all holed up in our houses too. So you're going to hear the odd noise. You might hear somebody's kid walk into the room, or because this is real. We're all hunkered down in our houses trying to do radio. And so it's going to sound like radio from our house. And I'm in my house. Jennifer's in her house. And Jennifer, you were talking before the break about dealing with feelings of anxiety, how to navigate this on a personal level.
Yeah, so we talked about creating a sense of safety by limiting our exposure to extreme news or just sources of news that are likely to exacerbate our already anxious feelings. But I want to talk about calming techniques as well, because this is another thing that's been found to be effective for mass trauma. So calming techniques are things that we can do as individuals and together that help our limbic system quiet down. So I want to give a little brain lesson here. Take your fist, put your thumb inside of your fist and fold your fingers over. This is a diagram of your brain. This is your brain stem. It controls the physical. This is the emotional part of the brain. It controls the emotions. And this is your cerebral cortex. It controls your thinking and decision-making aspects.
All right. So those of you who are just on radio, I'm making an incorrect fist. All men know you do not put your thumb inside your fist when you're going to punch something. However, today your thumb is inside your fist because the thumb represents? Yeah.
The thumb represents the limbic system, or the emotional part of the brain. Okay. So what's happening here is, with anxiety, the limbic system becomes very activated and really overactive.
Right.
And it has the effect of sort of drawing all the energy in the brain out of the cerebral cortex, or the thinking part of the brain, into the emotional part of the brain. And then it's very easy to get into a feedback loop of what we call emotional reasoning. I'm scared. There must be something to be afraid of. There must be a life and death threat in front of me because I feel like there's a life and death threat. So that's a feedback loop, because the more I believe that, the more afraid I become, and then I believe my fear. So it very quickly spirals into a feedback loop. So what calming techniques do is they physically change the way the brain is functioning by manipulating the one system in your body that connects to both the unconscious and the conscious mind. So think about it in terms of the autonomic and the somatic nervous system. Okay. What's the one system in your body that connects to both of them?
Right. Limbic system.
No, the respiratory system.
The respiratory. Oh, okay. I got you. I was going the wrong direction in my head, but I get it. Respiratory system. Yeah.
That's all right. You're 1 for 1 now, because you were right once and you were wrong once. So that's okay.
There you go.
You're still doing good. So you're going to...
Not bad. Not bad. Better than my grade school grades.
So the respiratory system is both conscious and unconscious. I don't have to think about breathing, but I can think about breathing. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting the cerebral cortex with the limbic system and enabling them to influence each other by engaging the breathing system. So this is so important. Now, what we do is, when people are anxious, they tend to hyperventilate. I don't know if you know that, but they tend to take in too much oxygen. So we're not wanting to hyperventilate. But what we are wanting to do is slow our breathing down to mimic the kind of breathing we experience when we're calm. Now, I know, Sean, you're never calm and you hardly ever sleep, but most people, when they sleep, they breathe very deep and very slow. What we're doing here is we're trying to slow our breathing down to trick our limbic system into believing that there is no threat. So everything is going to be okay. It's faith it till you make it. I call it faith it because I don't believe in fake. But anyway.
Okay.
So basically what you do is you breathe into the count of 6, hold for 2, breathe out to the count of 8, and then you pause a little bit. And if you can do this successfully, you get to where you're not feeling like you're gasping for breath. So what I've done to make this easy is I've created a song that people can breathe along with the song. And I'm gonna do this whole thing with a video and everything, but that's some of the resources. I'm doing a whole presentation on COVID-19. I call it Corona Care. And I give these resources to groups that ask to have this presentation. And that's one of the things I give them, is this song. And I can give that to you guys as well, if it would be helpful. But yeah, learn some of those calming techniques. Also, deep muscle relaxation, where you tense and release different groups of muscles, can be very calming. So that's good. So learn calming techniques. So another important thing that we do is we don't want to just calm down. We want to have the right kind of activation. We want to increase our sense of efficacy. We want to believe that we can be efficacious. We do have power. Here's the thing, Sean, is that Christians say a lot, I can do nothing without God. And they almost make it seem like God does things instead of them.
Right.
But I don't think that's primarily the way. I mean, he does sometimes do things that instead of us, like opening Red Sea and stuff. But most of the time, he's doing it within us. And so there's a blending. Yeah, there's a blending of human and divine forces, so to speak. And so what we want to do is we want to capitalize on that need. We were created for power. God said, have dominion over nature.
Sure. We were put in charge of something.
That's right. So we were created for power and choices and options and volition. And what self-efficacy does is it sort of restores us into that frame of mind. So what we have to do in the current situation is aim for things that are doable. Like right now, you're not going to make Corona go away. You're not going to be able to go out and do whatever you want. You may not even be able to hold on to your job, but there are still some things you can do. Ask yourself, what can I do given my situation? The biggest barrier people have to doing the most constructive thing for the circumstances is wishing that the circumstances were different.
Right. And
you know what I'm saying?
Wishes make me feel like I'm out of control. I find myself thinking, okay, what am I in charge of? Well, I'm in charge of my house. I'm in charge of keeping the kitchen and the bathroom clean. I can do that. I can wash those down every day. And I just did something about mitigating this in my house.
That's right. That's right. There's a wonderful story from a lady named Edith Eger, who was a friend of Viktor Frankl, who went through concentration camps. And she was left for dead on a pile of bodies. And the war ended. They pulled her out and she lived. And she talks, I think still to this day, she's an older lady, but she remembers being in the camps and people would eat dead bodies. She remembers lying in the grass. They were trying to live. And she said, I chose not to eat the bodies. She said, but I remember lying in the grass, praising God that I still had a choice, which blade of grass to eat. And so if we can learn how to do that, if we can learn how to say, I don't have every option, but I do have some options.
Sure.
First and foremost, my attitude toward the current circumstances is a choice that I can make. And so learning how to make the most constructive choices within your limited set of options is a really important skill for calming and self-efficacy. And we can also do that as a community. We can sit there and go, the government this and the government that, they did everything wrong.
That's how I started the show, complaining.
Exactly. So this is whatever. Or we can say, we can harness the power of the grassroots and say, look, we're all in this together. And we not only are in it together, but we have all kinds of time right now, or at least some people do. And we can do some stuff and we can decide what we can do to make things better for our communities, for our families, and for ourselves. So that's what I'm calling self-efficacy. Very, very, very important.
I love that thought. Because I don't know, you've known me for a few years now, and one of the things I hate is feeling no control over stuff, and I can't be alone out there. It drives me nuts not to be in control. But right now, I'm in control of all kinds of things. I'm in control of when I eat lunch. I'm in control of choosing healthier foods to ramp up my immune system. I'm in charge of my prayer life. We gather as a family and claim God's promises every evening before we go to bed over our house. And there's something about it. I'm not stopping the plague, and I might not even stop myself from getting this eventually. But I'm still a human being, and I'm still in control, and not everything has been taken from me.
Amen. And I love that benefit finding of we can have family worship now, because a lot of times people are too busy running in all different directions. They're stuck at home now. It's a great time to start a practice of daily praying with your family and reading from the scriptures. There's a lot of good things coming out of it.
We started Skyping family members that we never have time to hang out with last night. And we touched base with my folks and my brother. And I'm probably running ahead of you. And Jean and Naomi played Candyland last night. I said, why do you want to play Candyland at your age? They said, because we haven't played it since we were little, and who has time? And they had a blast.
And it was bonding for them. And that's exactly what I was going to say next, is that connection is a really important feature of this. And now we have time. We have time to call people. Go through your Rolodex and identify who is it that I haven't talked to in years, or maybe even decades.
For those of you under 40, Rolodexes is what we all used to use to find people. It was made of little paper cards, like a card catalog, but you don't know what that is either. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
It's your address book.
And then it's your contact list. And then we want to instill hope in people. We want to keep optimistic. And I want to bring in a few texts, which I love.
Yeah, let's do that.
This harkens back to the whole concept of benefit finding or post-traumatic growth. I thought of 3 texts. James chapter 1, that works patience. Pay attention to the wording. And then Romans 5:3.
And sorry, I was just grabbing my Bible. 1:3.
That's right.
Okay.
1:3, James 1:3, the trying of your faith works patience. And then Romans 5:3, tribulation works persistence. And then 2 Corinthians 4:7, for this light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glories. That's all the same works. And it's from the Greek, and I don't know if I can say this word, but katergesei, and it means to produce something or to bring it to finality. So there's an actual work that's going on in the trying of our faith, in tribulation, and in these light afflictions. There is benefit that's coming out of it. And, think about it. So many of us run around from our activities from day to day, just chickens with our heads cut off, and we wish we had a deeper walk with Jesus.
Yes.
Or we wish we had a closer relationship with our family. Or we wish we could overcome certain emotional or spiritual obstacles in our souls, God could be bringing us. He could be using this thing to work that in us, to work something that nothing but those circumstances could work. I'm not saying God made it happen, but I am saying, because, the devil's at work and God's at work and there's just all kinds of active. But I am saying that God can use what's actually happening.
Yeah, he really can. And I found this, for, the last 30 years, I've been saying one day I'm going to have time for X and I will finally get around to doing it. Never happened until now. And so here we have the pause button. And I think that's the big silver lining for me. The pause button of the universe has been pushed. And there are things that I have meant to do for 30 years. I can do them now.
That.
And so, quickly, those 3 references one more time. We've got 30 seconds to the break. Those 3 references, so people can look them up again. James 1, verse 3.
James 1:3, Romans 5:3, and 2 Corinthians 4:17.
Yeah, here's a golden opportunity, folks, to build your relationship with God, too. You maybe know that you haven't given him the time you should over the last few years. You've got the time right now. We're going to take a little break, speaking of time, and we're going to come back with one more segment with Jennifer Jill Schwerzer and anxiety.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions? Like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Does my life really matter to God? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? The Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers that you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter the most to you. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
And we are back from the break. If this was a game of baseball, we would have just rounded third base, and we're headed for home plate. And the show will be over soon, which creates some anxiety in my mind. I'm just kidding. There is no anxiety in my mind because I'm sitting down today. Well, sitting down is a generous term for what we're doing. We're Skyping across the country because we are all stuck in our houses under stay-at-home orders. And so we are Skyping a radio show, warts and all. We're determined we are coming on the air no matter what happens in this country. And we're going to cling to hope and talk about God and Christ and the hope that we have in Christ. And today we're talking about anxiety because Jennifer is the CEO of Abide Counseling, and she's our go-to person when it comes to dealing with, well, anxiety and other related issues. And so just before the break, we went through a number of things that you can do to mitigate anxiety in your life. My favorite, Jennifer, was building a sense of control and efficacy because, well, I'm the son of Dutch immigrants, and we love to control our world. And so I did enjoy that. And I learned a lot there, though, and I know it was helpful. I want to ask you about something specific, though, because I'm about to bring up something that makes some Christians squirm. I know that I tend to live almost exclusively in the future, personally. I have that habit. I'm thinking 20 years out every time I'm planning, and that doesn't always help your sense of angst. And so I practice what some people would call mindfulness to sort of maintain, center myself, find a sense of calm. And the minute I say things like center yourself or mindfulness, I know I'm freaking people out. I really am, because we're afraid that mindfulness is a concept lifted straight out of Eastern mysticism. And there are forms of it that really are. I mean, I'm leery of some forms of Eastern mysticism and so on because they're inappropriate for the Christian. But let's talk about mindfulness. Is there such a thing as Christian mindfulness? Is this appropriate for the Christian? Is it permissible for the Christian?
I think that everything of value ultimately stems back to God.
Right.
So everything that really matters to human health and, the benefits of health and the happiness in our existence would be ultimately traceable back to God and would have some kind of expression, I think, in Scripture.
Sure.
So I don't feel threatened by certain principles being developed and shared within a certain religious context, just because they're shared within that religious context, if they have their roots in Scripture. In other words, I don't disallow things just because another religion espouses them, because then what I'd be doing is I'd still be letting that religion dictate to me what I believe and what I don't. I'm just reacting to it instead of embracing it. But it's
a lot of religions say God is love. They're not wrong about that. They might be wrong about how they express it, but they're not wrong about the principle.
Nothing develops truth with the precision, the level of precision as I think Christianity, and the basic fundamental principles of Christianity are different than the other world religions as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean that everything about those religions is wrong. So just because Buddha said something doesn't make it wrong. So mindfulness, as is practiced in the mainstream social sciences and counseling offices today, is taken from Buddhism. But the million-dollar question, which you just asked a minute ago, is it biblical? So what I've done is I've gone into basic, mindfulness practices as are practiced in, secular realm, and I've identified the aspects of it that are beneficial, that I would say are making a difference. You can have a certain kind of therapy where you do cartwheels, so do cognitive restructuring. Well, the cartwheels aren't helping, but the cognitive restructuring, well, then you package it as this certain kind of therapy. It's going to say it works, but it works because of what's right about it, not because of what's wrong about it. So I wanted to go into mindfulness and say, what's right about it? It may be packaged with some things that aren't helpful, but something is working. It's empirically validated over and over again. So what are those things? So as I was able to look into it, I identified, number one, breathing. And we did that a minute ago. We talked about deep, slow breathing is generally used in any form of meditation, including mindfulness meditation. And I explained why that breathing is beneficial. And by the way, the pen of inspiration, a person who I believe was inspired, Ellen White, that students should be taught how to breathe. When you have to teach someone how to breathe, that implies that they don't already know how to breathe, right? So people have to be taught how to breathe. So there's nothing wrong with breathing in a way. Breathing is a good thing. That's my point.
Right.
So breathing is one of the aspects of mindfulness that seems to really benefit. Then focus is the other one. And you just mentioned going on a walk, come back from the walk. You didn't remember anything from it because you didn't focus. And that's okay. You don't always have to focus. But the ability to zero in on something and screen out distractions is a really important mechanism of the human brain that apparently has a calming influence. And here's, I think, one of the reasons why. When you're constantly distracted, what you're doing is your eyes are racing across the field
Right.
of vision, a notification over there. Someone came in that eye movement. You can just see it in the way that I'm moving.
All right. Some pretty significant glitches. I think 340 million people are all trying to use Skype today. And we seem to have reestablished our connection. And you were talking about mindfulness and the eyes darting and letting yourself get too distracted.
So one of the important features of mindfulness is focus. So we tend to always be distracted by something. And so we have notifications. We have people walking in the front door, our phone, our computer. It mimics fight or flight. So it makes it easier for us to feel anxious. So focus tends to help pare down those reactions and really is very calming. So that's another aspect of mindfulness that works. A third aspect is imagination, the recapturing of the imagination. I love this quote from the book Desire of Ages. It says, we should spend a thoughtful hour in contemplation of the life of Christ, especially the closing scenes. So God would like our imaginations to be recaptured from all of the things that distract it. That's another aspect of mindfulness that is very effective. And then finally, objectivity, the ability to observe what's happening without getting caught up in it.
Right.
The ability to say, I notice that I'm anxious right now, without saying, I am an anxious person. I'm a nutcase. I'm going to go completely crazy. Seriously.
Although, no, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I just recognized a little Boonstra in there.
Yourself.
I mean, that's me. Oh, yeah. No, I'm in there. And it's easy to fall into a loop where you're starting to think, man, there's something wrong with me. And I guess I'm crazy. Yeah. So
we call that secondary disturbance, when you're disturbed and then you're disturbed about being disturbed. And so there's seriously. Then there's
I know. I'm laughing because I live with it.
I'm trying to be serious. No, I know.
I know.
It's all right. There's two kinds of secondary disturbance. There's the moralistic, spiritual kind where you say I'm failing because I'm anxious, and Christians aren't supposed to be anxious. And then there's the pathologizing kind, which says I'm going to die. I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm going to die from this anxiety. Right. So the point is that it's okay to have all of these intense emotions. We're made in the image of God. He's an emotionally complex being, and we are made in his image with emotional complexity and intensity. And so it's okay to have those emotions. But what mindfulness does is it backs off and it says, let me just observe these emotions from a distance. We see biblically that happening in Romans 7. Paul said, it's not I. It's sin that dwells in me. He's backing up from his temptation cycle and observing it.
That's one of the most angst-ridden passages in the entire Bible in Romans 7. It's like, and this is the great apostle, and but you're right. He steps back suddenly and says, wait a minute, I see what's actually going on here.
Well, then he says that, but he resolves the anxiety at the end because he says, I myself, with my mind, serve the law of God. I'm a committed Christian.
Right.
But with my flesh, the law of sin. So your emotions and your body is going to do things at times you don't want it to do. Learning to say it's doing its thing and that's not who I am is a really important tool. And it's really essentially at least part of what mindfulness is.
Right.
So I think that those things have been borrowed from the truth, been borrowed from God, been borrowed from Jesus, been borrowed from Scripture. Yeah.
I mean, if you find yourself riveting your mind on Shiva, you're probably doing this wrong. But if you're looking at the principles, they're there. And I'm thinking about Matthew 6. I know we just have minutes to go, but Matthew 6 is a go-to passage for me. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink. He's forbidding me to worry about tomorrow. And it's the verse at the end that gets me. Honestly, it gets me. I struggle with this. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own thing. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. So I've got permission. Okay. all I can actually deal with is right now. And that is a degree of mindfulness. What is today? And so today is get the laundry done. Cook a meal for the family. Tomorrow will come and tomorrow will have its own problems. And I think and he spends all this time in that passage saying, would you look around you, look at the birds, look at the flowers, take a look at the world. Is God not in control? That seems to me to be Christian mindfulness.
I totally agree with you. And I think it's completely fine. And, if Buddhists want to use that or if Hindus want to use that, God isn't going to call them a plagiarist or put a copyright on it, so it's only available to some people. God is very generous by his very nature, but I think anything good and beneficial we can trace back to his word, and you've done a great job of that today. And by the way, God says you shouldn't worry. It's a moral imperative, Sean, and I know that's hard for you.
And it actually is. But worry is listed as a sin. We don't read this carefully enough. And it's a sin because I am now telling the universe through my actions that I do not believe God can handle this.
But all of
and
God's
faith isn't about
enablers.
feeling. Yes, they are. And
That's
faith
right.
isn't about how you feel. How I feel changes with the newscast tonight.
That's
Faith is, you know what? I choose today. And we always have choice. I like that you talked about choice being an important part of dealing with anxiety. I can choose today to believe. You don't always feel like believing, but you can choose to. I believe God's in control and I don't have to panic about this. For me, at least, that puts the brakes on the loop.
That's right. That's very good. That's good.
All right. One more time. If people want to join you Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, how can they join in on this group call for support?
So you want me to give them the number again?
Yeah,
so that
go
would
ahead.
Be
give us that number, 721.
7 p.m. Eastern time, and then that would be 712-770-4010, 712-770-4010, and the access code is 305624 hashtag.
Okay,
305624 hashtag.
That will connect you with Abide Counseling. You have an evening. What can people expect if they do call in?
It's a simple support call run by a professional or a paraprofessional that I have personally trained in the Abide Counseling Network that will, take prayer requests and share God stuff that'll help you get through this current crisis, basically.
Fantastic.
And you'll have other people there that are in the same situation you're in. So we'll come together. It'll be a connection point.
Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, thank you for using this crisis to reach out and be a blessing to others. One last question. Do you have enough toilet paper for the next month?
I think I'm good.
Yeah. I found one pack yesterday at Safeway. One. And I got it. So I'm good for a week.
I'm not worried about it.
No, I'm not actually worried about any of those things. And so, listen, Jennifer, always a blessing. Thank you so much for taking time to join the program today. I always learn a whole bunch. I am living this like everybody else, and you've given me some things to study from the Word of God and some principles to live by, and you're always a blessing when you dial in. Folks, you want to visit the website one more time, Jennifer? Abide Counseling.
It's just simply abide.network.
Abide.
Can't miss it.
Okay, abide.network. And come to voiceofprophecy.com too. We have all kinds of resources for you to grow closer to God during this time when you're at home. Until next time, thank you so much.